One of the things that's really interesting is how freaking difficult it is to let go. And to be clear, I don't like using the word let go because I don't know how many times, at the beginning part of this whole thing, people are like, well, you just got to let it go. You got to let it go. And there's truth to it, but it's a hell of a lot more complicated than anyone really lets on to believe. And it's super easy for people who aren't experiencing it, who are not experiencing this, and who aren't going through this to let go because they don't have the emotional baggage or the emotional damage or however you want to say it associated with all of this. And I can remember back to the early days of my situation, and I couldn't let anything go. I was so freaking angry. I wanted to reciprocate, so to speak, and jab the ex in the eye just as much as she was jabbing me in the eye. And it took me a long time to realize, and when I say long time, it probably took me a couple of years to realize that it was an exercise in frustration. It wasn't accomplishing anything. Let me back. Well, the only thing it was accomplishing was keeping me tied to her, tied to the past, tied to not being able to start to retake my life. But the crazy part is you can't tell anybody that, right? I mean, I can sit here and try to say to you right now that you got to let it go. But until you are ready to do that, it's nearly impossible to do. So here's the thing. Here's the reality. You have to look at the situation and ask yourself, is this really helping me? Is what's going on right now, what's going on today, is it helping me get my life back, get my peace back, to minimize and or eliminate the chaos as much as possible? Is it really helping? Now, sometimes you don't want to address that because the only interaction you still have with the ex is conflict. Now, let me be a little more clearer on this. And I know a lot of people are absolutely not going to want to admit this. And maybe you're one of them. Maybe you're one of those people who would never in a million years say this out loud to someone else. But the reality is, once you finish this, once you implement hybrid no contact, once you basically have your boundaries set, you no longer have really an interest in interacting with your ex. Some people find that incredibly difficult because the only thing they have left is the conflict. The relationship is gone, the illusion is gone, the potential for a positive outcome has been obliterated, and all you're left with is just the reality that this is a Charlie Foxtrot and never going to be the same. Now, I hate to say this. I hate to admit it, but I'm going to right now. There was a period of time where what I'm talking about was in the back of my mind. Now, would I tell anyone that I didn't want to give up the last little piece that I had of a connection with the ex? No, I didn't want to say that because it was readily apparent that I was dealing with somebody who is not the best person in the world, wasn't good for me, and I didn't want to look, I already knew I looked like a fool. I didn't want to exacerbate that and turn around and have people, and tell someone that I was still had a connection. So it's okay if you have that. You need to be honest with yourself. You don't even have to tell anybody, but you got to be honest with yourself about what's really going on so that you can work through it, work forward, and to be able to let that part go. It was tough. It was really hard for me to do that. I had a really difficult time letting go. And it wasn't until after a couple of years into this where I'm just like, I just don't want to do this anymore. I'm tired of thinking about what the ex is thinking, what they're trying to do, what's going on, why, I mean, all that crap. I was exhausted from it. I was thinking, I've been with this person, I was with that person for 2 decades, 21 years, 22 years, something like that. And here I am, past it, the relationship's destroyed. There's no interaction, there's no friendship, there's no co-parenting, there ain't jack diddly squat. Trying to keep it PG for YouTube. And the reality is it just, I had to finally realize that there wasn't anything left. There wasn't anything there. There wasn't anything to do. All it was doing was dragging me down. When I was getting information from people, or not getting information, when people would tell me what was going on with the ex, it would screw me up for days afterwards. If I had to interact with her for a school event or something, there were days afterwards that it would just send my mental health into a tailspin. And I got sick of it. I'm sure there's probably a point that you might be there as well. You might be there right now. You might be like, I'm sick of it. I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want this person in my head. What was it, that movie? There was that movie that Jim Carrey was in, something with a spotless mind, where he has a breakup with his girlfriend, and it's, I don't know, I can't remember what the complete details of it, but it was like, it was a conflicted relationship. And there was a service that they could just purge those memories out of your head, and that's what he did, and that's what she did. I mean, I think there was a period of time where I'm like, oh my God, why can't this just be real? I just don't want this person occupying any more space in my head or in my heart. Here's the reality of this. You have to take this slow. You have to understand and accept the fact that this doesn't happen overnight. And you're probably more than likely looking at your ex on the other side going, holy crap, they were able to purge me out of their mind in a second. Well, you're not dealing with a normal person. You're not dealing with somebody whose head is on straight. So you got to keep that in mind. You got to keep it in perspective. But if you are struggling with this, take a breath, be easy on yourself, be honest though, be honest with yourself, and give yourself the time to heal and to work through this. If you are okay with finding a therapist, look for a good trauma therapist. If you want, if you're looking for books, go to my dadsurvivingdivorce.com/resources page tab. I'll see if I can put a link up wherever the thing is. If it pops up, you'll see it. Look at some of those. Look at some of those resources that can help you to get yourself through this. I mean, I even used, and this is also on the resource tab, I had to fall back on hypnosis files to try to reprogram my brain on what I was dealing with. There's a lot of things there's a lot of things out there for you to try. Some might work for you, some might not. But be open to trying new things to get your life back. And like, again, if you are beating yourself up, if you're constantly ruminating, everybody that I've talked with, and I've experienced this myself, goes through that. It doesn't mean that you're going to be stuck with it forever, although it feels like it, you won't be, and you'll get your life back. I ask this a lot. Anybody who's been through this and has been on this channel for a while, who can completely relate with what I'm saying, please share that, a little bit of that in the comments below, so somebody else who's reading this will go, oh, wow, okay, so there is some positive. There is some people who are successful. And be really careful of the other resources you find online. I cannot begin to express how frustrating it is to look on Facebook at all of the groups that are talking about these topics that are just putting out horribly depressing, worst case scenarios of what potentially can happen. Yes, those things happen. There are people who have those, but I firmly believe those are people who fall into that martyr category, who are defeatist, and they just basically are like, I've lost and it's going to be crap. And they just basically, point the plane into the ground and auger it in at full speed. You don't have to do that. You can take control of your situation, of your own mind at least, and start to take some of your power back and undo some of the negative stuff that happens on this. This is why I have people on my channel who end up with full custody, men, fathers, or exposing the ex's lies. People who have been able to get 50-50 custody whenever, they were completely touted as horrible or abusive, or even even criminal type actions that were unfounded and untrue. Don't accept defeat out of the hands of victory. A lot of times, if you're just able to persevere through this, and sometimes it takes a while. I've had a few people who've come back recently, and it's like, hey, I've been dealing with this for 2 years, and finally things have turned the corner. So just take everything slow. I know it doesn't feel like any of this should go slow. I mean, it feels like it needs to happen now because you feel like you're being just crucified. But, most of the time we have a long period of time to deal with on this. My situation when I started, I think my kids were 6, 9 and 12, maybe 5, 9 and 12. Sometimes when you have younger kids, it's a little bit easier because by the time the dust settles from all the stupidness with the divorce, you can actually start to solidify your relationship and really minimize parental alienation. But your actions are key on this. Anyways, hopefully that was helpful. Catch you on the next video. Take care.